First Peter 1, just to remember. This letter was written to the Christians that were being spread out because they were being persecuted. So this whole letter was written to a people that is going through persecution. This whole letter is written to a community that is on the run. So they're facing governmental oppression. They're facing social pressure. Some of them are losing their businesses, losing their homes. Families are being separated. Churches are being split because of pressure. Just a lot of turmoil happening. So when Peter's writing this, he's writing this to a community that's on the run. And he doesn't know he doesn't know at what point he's going to find that this letter is going to find them. So First Peter chapter 1, if you remember, the first part of that was just Peter writing what God did to save you, reminding us, but remember what God did for you. All the way up to verse 12. Then you go from verse 13 and it transitions. And it goes from what God did for you to now our responsibility in how we are to react to other people. And in verse 13, he says, therefore, gird the loins of your mind. The first thing he tells the believers, after he reminds them of what Jesus did, shedding his blood, giving his life, and everything else, the first thing he said is protect your mind. Protect what's coming in so you can be guarded with what's going out. Don't just let thoughts come in. Don't just let everything in. Don't just open the floodgates and let CNN in, MSNBC, Fox News, whatever news, BBC. Don't just let all that stuff in. Don't just let the floodgates and information in, because not all information coming in is going to be beneficial to you. And when you're going through a hard time, make sure that you use a filter, because you're going to need it. You're going to need to be able to hear when you pray. If you're asking God for an answer, are you listening? And so Peter's address there is just, this is everything God did for you. This is what the Old Testament prophets laid out for you. They gave their life to give you the message that the Messiah was coming. Jesus comes, he appears, he gives his life, and now the responsibility he places on our hands to follow and obey the gospel that he hands to us. And then that's the whole conversation moving forward for the rest. We got into chapter 2, and it was very simple. If the gospel message comes to you, you will be changed. The simple evidence of Jesus in the life of a human being is their conduct to other people changing. If somebody hasn't changed, one of two things. Don't know of the price that Christ paid for them, and they're still learning that, and they're not knowing how to walk that out and embrace it, or they've never been born again. One of the two. So he starts it off very simple in chapter 2. Therefore, laying aside all malice of deceit, hypocrisy, envy, evil speaking, as newborn babies desiring the pure milk of the word. You know, one of the things that you're going to, as a new Christian, you're going to enjoy Bible teaching. You're going to enjoy reading your Bible. You're going to enjoy hearing about the things of God. Things that maybe you didn't enjoy before. Those things that you didn't necessarily spend your time on. Now, all of a sudden, you get in your car and you don't want to listen to secular music. You want something that's uplifting. You want, and
teaching.
Yeah.
Or hearing the word.
Hearing the word of God. Exactly. You're going to put a sermon on. You're going to, all of a sudden you're just like, man, I like this stuff. I like going to church. I can't wait for Sunday to come. I want to hear what my pastor's going to preach on. I enjoy the community. I enjoy all of those things. And Peter says, he says, starting off really simple. And the reason why he was laying this out was because we'll put the church in China. Those of you guys that have ever heard, the church in China, underground church and everything else. What happens to them if somebody comes in and just goes, you don't know them, nobody knows them at all. And they walk up to the underground church and they see you, maybe you prayed for someone, Dennis, and then they go, hey, you're a Christian? Okay. Where's everyone gathering at? Well, do you really want to tell someone when Christianity is illegal where 10,000 Christians are and where they're gathering?
My understanding is that in China, there's a mandate that if you know of anything that's illegal, you're mandated to report it. You must report it. They have a system that you are added, or what they call a number that they give you. But if your numbers go down, you don't get to own a house, you don't get to have food, you don't get to
It's not that severe. There is part. Jenny's there right now in China, and she has sent me videos of them ministering out in public, ministering to people, praying with people.
There's good China and bad, isn't there?
Well, the governmental structure of China, as far as there's some areas that are a little bit like what you're saying. There's some areas that are a little bit more, yes, a little bit more stringent. But overall, because we have a close friend that's part of our church, she's actually in China. She's coming back in 2 months, and she's been sending videos and communicating back with me, where they can go. They actually, I have videos of them in a park. They have Bibles. They're reading their Bible. They're gathering together. They're praying with one another, and then they actually are going out and about ministering. And it's not in a small city. She names the cities. They're big. Put it this way: in the world, the United States has two of the largest cities in the two of the top 50 biggest cities in the world. New York is like 10. LA is like number 49. So that means other nations have 48 other cities that are way bigger than what we call big cities. And China has many of them. And she's actually in an area where that's taking place. So there is that, but not as a whole. That, not as a whole where it's like that completely. But they have to be careful. There is infiltrators. There is people coming in from the government and that are trying to find out where's the group's at. And so if you live in a society like that and you live in a culture that way, and let's say Christianity was illegal in California. And Sister Rose, you were praying with somebody. Like I said, and then they said, you're a Christian? Yeah. You're not going to deny that. And they go, well, hey, take me to where all the Christians are at. Paul and Peter's dealing with this because one of the things is very important. Do you need to take them to where all the Christians are at, or can you minister right then and there? Because it's Christ in you. So you can minister to these people individually. But he's also laying the groundwork of understanding. Get to know people. Don't rush things. It's okay. If you don't have to say yes to everything. It is okay to take things through. Allow things to go through. See their conduct, see their personality, see their character. Allow that to take place. And let that naturally come through, because what's going to happen in the life of somebody who has met Jesus and is now a follower of Jesus is you're going to see Jesus in their life. That doesn't mean that maybe they're a brand new Christian, but you will start see changes. And two of the changes are how they treat other people and how they treat the Word of God. Those are two quick things. Peter's like, just watch that. You'll see that. And so then we went into verse 4 and 5. He was rejected by men, but chosen by God and precious also, and you also are living stones. Understand what we're going to get into this here. Do you remember when Jesus was in Jerusalem and he said, tear this temple down, destroy this temple? And then he said, what? And then
Rebuild it in 3 days.
I rebuild it in 3 days. What was that about? He said he was speaking of the resurrection, of his death and the resurrection. So Peter makes this statement and he calls Jesus the living stone. He calls us the living stone. Peter was a Jewish man. He was a Jew. They were living under the law. So this letter is going out, and this is early Christianity. Do you remember in the book of Acts, where were Christians meeting? And where else? In the temples. So there was a blending still. Christianity and Judaism were still blended together amongst the Jews. And what would happen in the synagogues? A lot of arguments. Because Peter would start preaching, or Paul would start preaching, and say, the answer, the Messiah is here. His name is Jesus. And the Jews would say, you're a liar. And then they would have this argument that would take place. So how do you think it went when Peter tells them, Jesus is the living stone, and now you are that. Now you are the living stone. And not only that, but you're a priest. And he's saying it to Gentiles, those that were non-Jews. How do you think the Jews would take that?
Not well.
Not very good at all. You know, you know the story of the Good Samaritan? Do you know why that was an impactful story? Because what was a Samaritan? A half-breed. Well, to a Jew, you were a half-breed. So think of the story, the Good Samaritan. He goes and says, the Good Samaritan, he goes and he finds, there's a man that's beaten, and a rabbi comes, a priest. And what happens? He doesn't do anything. He leaves them there, suffers. Yeah, he just completely leaves them there. And then, was it a scribe, which is the writing? Nothing at all. And then the next one, then a Samaritan comes, a half Jew, who was to them a dog. Remember, what did Jesus say to the Syrophoenician woman?
And feed the dogs.
He goes,
Why are dogs so looked down on?
I like doggies,
Yeah, for sure, man.
but
I never got that.
it's just
So loving, so loyal, so everything.
yeah. No, I know. Poor doggies, they get a bad rap.
They do. Like pit bulls.
And so he's writing this, and he tells them, you're the temple and you're the priesthood. Dude, that was a really big deal. That was not cool to the Jews. That was fighting for. But he says,
Fighting words.
yeah, those are fighting words. So he tells them, bringing them together to the Gentiles, guys, you're part of the temple now. You're part of the priesthood, operating through Christ. That's a really big deal. And then in verse 6, verse 6, it says, therefore, it is also contained in the scriptures. Behold, I a chief cornerstone, elect, precious, and he who believes on him will by no means be put to shame. Um,
What chapter, verse 6?
2.
chapter 2, verse 6. Can you read, jump over to Isaiah 28, 16.
Isaiah 20?
Isaiah 28, 16.
28?
Yeah.
Okay.
Read Isaiah 28, 16.
So this is what the sovereign Lord says. See, I lay in a stone in Zion, a tested stone, a precious cornerstone, for a sure foundation. The one who trusts will never be dismayed.
Okay. Isaiah, Jesus or Paul, Peter is quoting a statement Jesus said as far as being the chief cornerstone. But he quotes that out of Isaiah, out of the Old Testament. Do you know the context of that chapter? Isaiah 28 was a chapter of judgment. Go to the first verse in chapter 28. See how it starts.
Woe to that reap the Ephraim's drunkards.
Yeah. Read like the first two, 3 verses.
To the fading flower, his glorious beauty, set on the head of a fertile valley. To that city, the pride of those laid low by wine. See, the Lord as one who is powerful and strong, like a hailstorm and a destructive wind, like a driving rain and a flooding downpour.
Okay. You can stop there. If you read Isaiah 28, God is speaking of judgment coming to the nation of Israel. And he says, because of your sin, because of your lifestyle, because of your rebellion, because of your rejection, then he gets into, behold, I lay in Zion a chief, elect, precious. So God is speaking of a judgment that is coming to Israel and they will be enslaved. But he throws that scripture in Isaiah 28, 16, that judgment is going to bring about a new temple, a new priesthood. So before they went in as slaves, God tells them, this is a judgment that's coming. You rejected me. You didn't obey me. So because of that, see, okay, if you go to, anybody ever seen the White House? Or if you go to the state capitol?
In real?
On TV.
Yeah. Or if you go to the state capitol that you hear in Sacramento, or even
Here's that.
okay, you ever see all those pillars? That's a cornerstone. Beautiful, right? This culture, it's really not for structural strength. It's really more just beauty. But then the chief cornerstone would be something like it is a beautiful part of the structure, but it is the weight bearing wall.
Is that kind of what Samson dealt with when he?
Yeah, like that wall, that little flat wall would be a chief cornerstone because that's holding the weight of the second structure being held there. So when they would start at that time, because they build buildings different, they build it by block, we do it by framing and wood. When you built a building, then you started with the chief cornerstone. That's where you started from. You built the chief cornerstone, which was the strength point, and then you built the building out because it couldn't hold without it. So that's where you started from. So in Isaiah 28, God tells them, because you've rebelled, I've rejected you. You because you rejected me, you disobeyed me, you didn't listen. It was judgment in Isaiah 28. That there was somebody that was the cornerstone, elect and precious that was coming. Who was that? Christ. The judgment was to bring Jesus to come to restore all things. So the nation of Israel hears it, and what do they hear? They're going to make another temple. So Jesus says when he comes on the scene in the Gospels, he quotes that and says, tear this temple down, and in 3 days I'll rise it back up again.
At what point do you think Jesus' upbringing, I mean, I don't know if there's anything that indicates anywhere that he realized that he was going to be a sacrifice?
At what point did he understand that?
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing that really.
Yeah. I would imagine he knew because his mother knew. You know, it's kind of like, okay, the scriptures are silent about the life of Moses. How did Moses know? You know, take out the Prince of Egypt cartoon. in real life, how did Moses know he was growing up? His mother took care of him for the first 3 years of his life. I'm sure she said things to him between him and his sister Miriam as a young boy that stayed with him. Whether it
Just 3 years? I thought she had him more than that.
maybe it was, maybe it was longer than that.
I thought it was.
And so, but whatever point,
I thought it was up to like 10 or 11.
I don't think it was that old, but whatever time frame it was, whatever that was, how would a mother get that across? Whether it was through songs, you know, you're special, Moses. God saved you. Think about it, you know, if there was, think of the things, if you have kids that you shared with them, that maybe stuff that they went through when they were first born. I know when Angel was born, Angel's heard the story many, many times, and so did Justin. When Angel was born, his air passageways weren't connected. And so they grabbed him from us, and he was in an incubator. We couldn't touch him. We've shared this story with him. And for the first, we were there for, I think he was born on the 17th, and he didn't get released until the day before Thanksgiving, which would have been around the 24th, 25th. So he was in an incubator. They were prepping him for surgery. We seen the x-ray of his air passageways that wasn't connected. They said he'll never sing, jump, play sports, maybe never speak. They told us all these things. And he was in an incubator. He was in the ICU. And when all of the RNs walked out, because I was only able to touch him through the gloves, they left me one time, and I popped that thing open. And I wanted skin to skin, and I laid hands on my son, and I prayed over him. Nothing happened in the moment. I didn't see anything. We didn't notice anything. And then I put it back, locked it back up. They didn't see me on the camera, so they didn't kick me out. You know, and we went on. And it was the day before Deanna cried all night because they sent Deanna home because she couldn't stay there anymore, but Angel had to stay. And if you've ever been a mom leaving your child, your firstborn, in a hospital in the ICU, and you got to go, that ain't easy. And so Angel's heard this story 100 times. That we get a call early in the morning, the doctor says we need to talk. Okay. And he starts off, and we're looking at the x-ray of the original x-ray showing, here's this gap. And then he's talking to us, and then I don't know what happened. What, doctor? And he pulls out another x-ray that they took that morning. Fully connected.
Dude, you should have fessed up. You should have fessed up, man.
He knew.
Busted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fully healed. And they released him 4 hours. The doctor said the doctor was trying to convince me and Diana to abort him because they said that they found a hole in his heart and in his lungs, and he would never be normal. And same thing, we said, "Doctor, you're crazy. I want my son." And I tell him to this day, I don't know if he's normal, but he was born. But you know, as you, I'm sure Mary shared these stories with Jesus, some of these things, you know. And then there's certain things in the Gospel of Luke that Mary says she kept these things in her heart and never shared them with anybody. I'm wondering if did she not share it with Jesus, or did she just not share it with other people?
You know, I just thought of something, with that. It wasn't only Mary that knew about it. It was also John's parents, priest.
Mm-hmm.
So he got the whole picture of what was coming. I'm sure he was real clear about what was coming. If John was this guy, we know what this guy's all about. So I'm sure he shared that whole thing with Joseph and Mary too.
And Luke, even in the Gospel of Luke, talking about Elizabeth and John, and Zachariah the priest that had John the Baptist, it says, and this story spread many people in the region.
And how do we know if that was the only visitation of Gabriel?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That downloaded a whole bunch of stuff.
That's what I'm saying is just, I don't know. I have a feeling he knew.
I'm sure the angels had a close eye on that.
Oh, I'm sure.
There wasn't nothing happening.
I'm sure. And if your mom and you're told your child is the Son of God and the things rolled out the way that it did, it's kind of hard to hide that.
Yeah, that's a really...
And just mom gushing over that and sharing that. But she was also given a prophecy where she did say when Anna comes up, I think it was Simon, the gentleman that comes up to her and prophesies to her and says that a sword is going to pierce through your heart. And it says that she held that word and never spoke of that. This child's going to suffer, and there's going to be a sword that's going to pierce your heart because of this child. You don't want to think that.
Mary was chosen.
Oh, absolutely.
They knew who could handle that.
She had the goods, man.
They knew who could handle that.
So in that, when Peter is quoting that to the church that's being persecuted, he is reminding them, guys, that Jesus to come. Don't forget that. I know you're going through hardship, but there's people that have gone through hardship before for God to come. And if God came for them then, God will come to help you now. Don't lose track of that. And then he goes on in verse 7. Therefore, to you who believe, he is precious. But to those who are disobedient, this is really important that we remember. Believing is, notice it doesn't connect believing to information. It connects believing to obedience. How do you know if you believe in Jesus? Are you obedient to Jesus? How do you know if I'm a follower of Jesus? Are you obedient to Jesus? It may start with information, but information does not equal believing. That's huge. Because if you think that believing is information, I think it's 1 John that says, even the demons believe that there is one God and tremble. So if believing was good enough, then devils would be saved because they understand the information, but they can't be obedient. Believing equals obedience, not believing equals information. So you can know about him and not know him. You can know of him and not walk with him. You can carry, you know what I'm saying? You gotta understand the word disciple doesn't mean passerby. The word disciple means a student of. So you can't separate that part. To believe is to be obedient. So he says here, therefore, believe he is precious. But to those who are disobedient, the stone which the builders rejected, he has become the chief cornerstone, and a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense. Have you ever, my wife does it when whenever I've done woodwork or whatever, it drives my wife crazy. I'm cutting wood and I'll cut it and it drops, cut it and it drops, cut it and drop 2x4s, 2x6s, 4 wood. And she goes, clean it up. Clean it up. Like put it in a bucket, a wheelbarrow, get it out of the way. Well, I don't have time, but you're stumbling all over it. And see, this is what Peter is saying. This is Jesus. The salvation that came that should be there to hold it up. If you're stubbing your toe on it, and it is a nuisance to you because it's in your way. To the disobedient. I want to be disobedient. There's the stumbling block. It's always there. But I want to do it my way. You're tripping on it. Why? Because it's always right there and it's in the way. I want to do it. I want to do this the way I want to do it. It is a stumbling block. It's not asking, he didn't ask you to do it your way. He says, if you believe, you're obedient to him. Not a church, not a denomination, not a ministry, not a televangelist. No, are you obedient to the scriptures? Are you obedient to what he called you to? Are you obedient to what he commanded us to? It does. And this is why the whole reason why the gospel says, if you are of the faith. It's just a reflection of self. It's just a reflection point of, okay, every day, carry your cross daily. Because if the two things that he identifies in chapter 2 that are supposed to be fundamental is how do you treat other people and how do you treat the word? In your life, think of it that way. How do you treat other people and how do you treat the word? Are other people important to you or you? To you. Is his word more important to you or is your word more important to you? This is what Peter is saying. Because he's writing to Christians and he says, if you're disobedient to the word that should be the priority to you as a new babe, there is no child ever born that goes, I don't know if I want my mom's milk or not. Not today. That don't happen. He cries. Because he needs it. Or she needs it. So it's just that reflection of, okay, I need this. And not to do it your own way.